Hi everyone and good morning. My name is Laura and welcome to Book Bubbler. This is the next in my TBR unboxing series. This is authors I through L for my basement boxes. In case this is your first video of these, I have too many books and don't have enough shelf space on my first level, so I alphabetically-ish put some of my unreads into bins in my basement on storage shelves. I mostly haven't looked in these in at least a year, if not more, unless I'm looking for something specifically or I'm just putting a book into it. So this is new to me, or new-ish to me. I mean, I know I own these books at some point, but I couldn't tell you what was in here if you paid me. I'm just being honest. So this bin is another big bin like the last one. It's a big clear bin. Sterilite is the brand, in case you care. I know you don't. So of course I can see some things on top, but most of the stuff is faced sideways, lined up. So hopefully I can get rid of a few books here. That would be helpful for my mental health, I think. First up, Ancillary Justice by Ann Leckie. This is the first in the, what is it? What's the series called? Someone tell me. I don't have a clue. Oh, it was a Santa Thing present in 2015 from someone in Library Thing. All I've heard is excellent things about this, so I am keeping it for sure. Next up, A Gambler's Anatomy by Jonathan Lethem from November 2016. This is also a Book of the Month Club book, if I am not mistaken. Yep. This was Anthony Bourdain's pick. And true story, this was the second book that I picked up from Book of the Month Club. The first one I joined the first month before because Craig Ferguson, who I love and adore, picked a book by Layla Lalami, which actually is right underneath something else here. So Craig Ferguson picked this book and wrote very nicely about it, and I thought any book club that he is a member of and picks something of, like, I am of course keeping. So I'm keeping this, and I'm keeping this. I also love and adore Anthony Bourdain. I am still devastated that he is no longer with us, but I don't think we have similar taste in books or anything, but I would like to give this a try. I've never read this author before, so I might as well. So keeping it. That's my theme song, by the way, for those of you who are new. Keeping It is my theme song. Girl with a One-Tracked Mind Exposed by Abby Lee. I read her first one, I think just called Girl with a One-Tracked Mind, and it's about this woman who has an anonymous blog where she documents her sex life. She is open-minded, very much so. She's not a prostitute. She just really enjoys sex with lots of men. I think some women too. And I like books that are memoirs, and first of all, and I like books that are about sex workers or people who have a lot of sex, or prostitutes, or whatever you want to call them. I mean, I like books about that stuff. So I loved the first one, found out about this, got the second one, and then have never read it. You know how that is. You're like, oh my God, there's a next book. I better get it right away. I better get it immediately. And then it just sits there for years. That's this. So I'm keeping this. This will be a fun, easy read. Ooh, I almost dropped it. The Lies of Loch Lamora by Scott Lynch. Oh man, I really want to read this book. It's a big old chunkster with teeny little print in a mass market. Don't care, really want to read this. This is the first in a series, the Gentleman Bastard series. This is set in, I'm probably going to say London because that's probably a good call. But it's sort of fantasy, science fiction. It just sounds so good, and like it's right up my alley, so I'm keeping it. Take Good Care of the Garden and the Dogs, Family, Friendships, and Faith in Small Town, Alaska by Heather Lunday. This was a Christmas present from one of my friends a few years ago. So this is set in Haines, Alaska, population 2,400. So yeah, it's all about living in Alaska in a memoir. I think this might be okay because it's set in a smaller town. My uncle lived outside of Fairbanks, Alaska, and I have a hard time reading Alaskan things, or I can't watch anything about Alaska on TV. Like all those shows, I can't hack it. But I hope that this will be tolerable, let's say for now. And that's no offense to this book or the author, it's just family stuff that there's hurt and everything there. So, but this should be good and interesting. Okay, so now to books that I can no longer see what they are. The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. Have never read this, shamefully. This is a Book of the Month special edition, Books They Love series. So I am, of course, keeping this. I know I watched the movie, which was wonderful, but it's been a long time. Another one, Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. Did not see the movie for this one, thankfully, because I knew that it was coming out. But this was English countryside, teenage years, recalling. Not sure what it's about. Don't really care. It should be really, really good. I Wish I Had Been There, Book 2, European History. 20 superb historians invoke dramatic turning points in the history of Europe and the West. I mean, what is not to like here? Nothing. Short stories about history? Yes, please. Here it is, Total Chaos by Jean-Claude Izzo. This is the first in the Marseille trilogy. It's like sort of a gritty Mediterranean mystery thriller kind of a thing. I purchased this for myself. My friends, one of whom is French, they were going home to visit their family for the summer, and I usually lend them books. They saw this on my shelves and borrowed it. So my friend Jerome read it, his wife Joy read it. I think they passed it around to his French family that they all read it. And then I'm pretty sure that they all read the rest of the trilogy, and I still am sitting here with this unread like 8 years later. Hi, my name's Laura, welcome. Of course I'm keeping that one. It would be wrong to not read that book after it has been to France and back and like been read by 10 people. That would just be wrong. This Chunkster, Henry James, biography by Sheldon M. Novick, The Mature Master. This is incredibly heavy, just as an FYI. Final volume of Masterly Biography. Crap, I have to get more of them now? Yep, okay, so maybe there's just one before, but it's based on letters that he wrote, that Henry James wrote up through his death. And I love Henry James. He's not for everybody. He never met a sentence he didn't like to make run on. I don't care, I still love it. So I will get this eventually. Dang, I have to get the first one now. Sort of annoying, but I'll get it, don't worry. I'm gonna leave this out to remind myself to look for a used copy. James Joyce, The Double Letters, Centennial Edition. I bought this purely because of the cover, because I mean, look at this back. Beautiful, I love these Centennial editions. I have never read Dubliners before. I have read Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, and I really, really liked it. Haven't attempted Ulysses yet, don't own a copy, but this would be next on my list, so I'm keeping it. It's deckled edges though, which you know I'm not a huge fan of, but somehow I will suffer through a struggle on. Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. Diana Wynne Jones. I have never read Diana Wynne Jones. Of course I've seen the movie of this, and it's delightful and lovely, as all Studio Ghibli things are, but yeah, keeping it. Thunderstruck, there it is, by Eric Larson. This one is about Holly Crippen, who is a serial killer, murderer for sure. I have a book about him somewhere on my shelves up here in the living room that's just about him and his case. So he was trying to escape England, heading towards America. So it's why can't I can't think of words. Help a girl out, would you please? So Henry Crippen gets on, he commits a bunch of murders, gets tried for it, and I think he escapes before the trial is done or whatever. Anyways, so he gets onto a huge ocean liner, and Marconi, who is the inventor of the, what is that beep stuff. Oh my God. Telegram, whatever that, SOS-y thing. I've had no coffee this morning. We're gonna blame it on that. Let's just do that, shall we? Anyways, Marconi's on the ship and he's trying this out for the first time. So it's about, I think, Marconi and the invention of the telegraph, whatever. And I can't even read the back because I'm trying to think. That's terrible. Anyways, and Crippen, who is on the ship trying to escape. So the detectives in England know that he's on the ship, so they have to try and outrace this supposedly fastest ship to beat Crippen to the docks in, I'm assuming, New York, and arrest him before he can get away with it. So it'll be fascinating. It's about history. It's early 20th century. It is about true crime, mass murder stuff, and it's Eric Larson. You cannot go wrong. This is a terrible pitch. Thank God I'm not officially on anything like that. Okay, Tigana by Gaia Gabrielle Kay. This is a huge epic. Clearly, it's a doorstopper. Magical story of a beleaguered land struggle to be free. Tale of a people so cursed by the black sorcery of a cruel, despotic king that even the name of their once beautiful homeland cannot be spoken or remembered. Years after the devastation, a handful of courageous men and women embark upon a dangerous crusade to overthrow their conquerors and bring back to the dark world the brilliance of a long-lost name, Tigana. So this should be really, really fascinating. And I was trying to read a bunch of authors whose last names start with K and trying to find different genres I wasn't unused to, and someone recommended this one to me as a standalone by him and that they had liked this author before. So, I mean, I've heard of the author certainly, but have yet to read him. So I have this big chunkster to start with because I am keeping it. Okay. Ordinary Grace by William Kent Kruger, set in Minnesota in the early 60s. Accident, nature, suicide, murder, told from a twin's perspective 40 years later. I have never read William Kent Kruger. I've heard nothing but glowing, effusive praise about his writing and his books. This must have been a gift from someone. I think it was from my friend Linda on Library Thing again, but I will read this and give this a shot. It sounds a little sensationalist for me, like, and I tend to not like those kind of books, but you know what? I should stick this in the try a chapter pile. Doing it. Ooh. Okay, The Ladies Lending Library by Janice Kulik Kiefer. And it's not Kiefer like Kiefer Sutherland, it's Keefer. Oh, that's right. Okay, so this is from my friend Nan. Hi, Nan. She's not watching. In college, some of my friends and I started a tradition where we would go to the local independent bookstore in our city and buy a clearance book for each other that we think that they would like, and we write a little something in the front of them. So I told my friend Nan about this tradition probably 15 years ago, and after we saw The Young Victoria together in the movie theater, which I only know because she wrote about it in the cover of this book, we went to Borders. I miss Borders. And bought each other books and wrote in them. And this is that book that she picked for me. I highly recommend that you start that tradition yourself at your local independent bookseller. Go to the clearance rack and buy a book for $1 or $2 or $3 for a friend. Write something in the beginning and then give it to them afterwards. Don't let them see it, but as a little present. So this is set in August of 1963 on Kalina Beach cottage community. The women gather for gin and gossip, trading the current racy bestsellers among themselves as they seek a brief escape from the predictable rhythms of children and chores. But dramatic change is coming this summer as innocence falters and the desire for change reaches a boiling point, threatening to disrupt the warm, sweet, heady days in the lives of parents and children, family and friends forever. Might not be my cup of tea, but I'm for sure going to try it. And I'll probably keep it just because Nan wrote in the beginning of it, but I'm putting it in my keep it up pile just for that reason alone. Are you a little crooked? I apologize if you are. Sorry. Okay. The Rural Life by Verlin Klinkenborg. This is a memoir encompassing memories of his family's Iowa homestead, time spent in the wide open spaces of the American West, and his experiences on the small farm in upstate New York where he lives with his wife. Abounds with vicarious pleasures for the reader as it indelibly records and celebrates the everyday beauty of the world we inhabit. I really like memoirs in general, but stuff about gardening or farming or natural life, I really like that a lot. So I am for sure keeping this. Madame de Pompadour, A Life by Evelyn Lever. So, like a lot of people, I'm sure you heard about Madame de Pompadour because of Doctor Who with David Tennant. But I'd heard her name before previously because I really like French royalty of the 17 and 1800s. And I knew of her before that, but I forgot what an awesome kick-ass lady she was. So I have this biography of her, another one up on my shelves by Christine Allegrand, Petit Allegrand, don't know. This one by Evelyn Lever should also be good. Ooh, deckled edge. But yeah, Louis XV's Mistress has to be good and interesting, right? Okay. Immortal Muse by Stephen Lee. Oh my God. I'm trying to find a wrap-up here. Unforgettable tale that sweeps readers from 1300s Paris to modern-day New York, with interludes in the 1635 Rome of Bernini, the 1737 Venice of Vivaldi, the French Revolution in Paris with Lavoisier and Robespierre, 1814 London with William Blake and John Polidori, Fin de siècle Venice with Gustav Klimt, and World War II France with Charlotte Salomon. Began with the marriage of Perronel and Nicolas Flamel. Well, that's why I have this book. It's about Nicolas Flamel, who is not just a Harry Potter character, but a real person. And time travel-y stuff in the past. Sounds really interesting. I'm glad I bought it all those years ago. The Agency, A Spy in the House by Y.S. Lee. I believe this is the very first Mary Quinn mystery. This was another library thing gift for me. Set in Victorian, probably London. Doesn't say, but it should be really interesting. It's a mystery series starring a girl in the past. Perfect. Well, Inside by James Lipton, who recently passed. I really, really loved watching Inside the Actors Studio. I mean, yeah, what a great interviewer he was, and entertaining and thoughtful and caring and funny and just fabulous. So I am really looking forward to this big old doorstopper of a book about Inside the Actors Studio. Sorry, he passed away. Disreputable History of Frankie Landau Banks by E. Lockhart. So this is YA, the best frickin' girl power book ever. That's a quote from Lauren Miracle. She doesn't take no for an answer, except when no means she is excluded from her boyfriend's all-male secret society, not when her ex-boyfriend shows up in the strangest of places, not when she knows she's smarter than any of them, when she knows Matthew is lying to her, and when there are so many, many pranks to be done. So, how she got to be a criminal mastermind at the age of 16. Seems like fun. Okay, this is the last in the first row. The Bastard by Violette Leduc. This is French literature. An obsessive and revealing self-portrait of a remarkable woman humiliated by the circumstances of her birth and by her physical appearance. Relates Leduc's long search for her own identity through a series of agonizing and passionate love affairs with both men and women. When first published, it was compared to the work of Jean Genet for the frank depiction of sexual escapades and immoral behavior. Saucy. A confession that contains portraits of several famous French authors, this book is more than just a scintillating memoir like that of Henry Miller or Charles Bukowski. Leduc's brilliant writing style and attention to language transformed this autobiography into a work of art. The illegitimate daughter of a servant girl, Violet started writing at the urging of Maurice Sacks and Simone de Beauvoir. She wrote fiction and nonfiction, so this is her autobiography. Should be really, really interesting. I'm glad I bought it. Donkey Archive. See, interesting, unusual books from them. Highly recommend you check them out. Okay, one row left. My leg's falling asleep. London After Midnight, a tour of its criminal haunts. Stories by Agatha Christie, P.D. James, and Graham Greene. Nothing not to like here. Of course, I'm keeping it. Book of the Month Club, The Fall Guy by James Lasden from October of 2016. Woo! Everything's fallen out of it here. A taut psychological thriller, a couple and their house guest find themselves caught in a deadly web of secrets, obsession, and revenge, set in the summer of 2012. Yeah. Keeping it interesting, thriller. Here's something vintage, Gift from the Sea by Anne Morrow Lindbergh. My grandmother had 2 copies of this, and this was one of them. So I have never read this slim little classic, and I know I need to, especially since my grandmother had 2 copies of it. I mean, ridiculous. Of course I'm keeping that one. I'd be ridiculous not to. The Three-Body Problem by, is it Cixin Liu? Translated by Ken Liu. Chinese science fiction novel. I think this is the start. Yeah, the first book in the trilogy. Begins against the backdrop of China's Cultural Revolution when a secret military project sends signals into space to establish contact with aliens. They establish first contact over the next few decades via very unlikely means. And I think things probably go awry. That's probably a safe assumption. Sounds really interesting. Keeping it. Oh, the saddest music ever written, the story of Samuel Barber's Adagio for Strings, which this is by Thomas Larson. If you have never heard Barber's Adagio for Strings, you probably actually have heard it and didn't know that that's what that was. It's incredibly popular. It's very emotional and heartrending. It's about 10 minutes of lush, gorgeous orchestral music. It is just fabulous. And I will do a link below to, I will try and find the best copy. I have a really lovely edition on CD of some of Samuel Barber's work. And I don't know if I can find it on YouTube or not, but I will do my best to find something that sounds most similar to the version that I own and love. But this should be fascinating classical music piece history. Really good. Love that piece of music. I can hear it in my head right now. Okay, Love's Shadow by Ada Leverson. This is part of a Bloomsbury series, not by the Bloomsbury Group, but a Bloomsbury series by the publisher Bloomsbury. Oscar Wilde called the author the wittiest woman in the world. Already off to an excellent start. This is the story of Edith and Bruce Otley, who live in a very new, very small, very white flat in Knightsbridge, England. Edith is beginning to feel bored. Excitement comes in the form of the dazzling and glamorous Hyacinth Verney, who doesn't understand why Edith is married to one of the greatest bores in society. But then Hyacinth doesn't really understand any of the courtships, jealousies, and love affairs of their coterie, why the dashing Cecil Reeve insists on being so elusive, why her loyal friend Anne is so stubbornly content with being a spinster, and why she just can't seem to take her mind off of love. So this is the first in the Little Otleys trilogy. Comedy of Manners. Sounds great. And I like this little Bloomsbury series too, so. The Trumpeter of Krakow by Eric P. Kelly. This won the Newbery Award. It's a middle grade fiction. There's something about the great Tarnov crystal. Wise men speak of it in hushed tones. Others are ready to kill for it. And now a murderous Tartar chief is bent on possessing it. But despite this, Joseph Chernetsky is bound by an ancient oath to protect the jewel at all costs. So it's set in Poland, medieval Poland. Fascinating. Okay. Jan Karen at Home in Mitford, the first novel in the Mitford series. Father Tim, who is a bachelor rector, set in the small hill town of Mitford. I have heard lots of good things about this over the years. It's a very gentle, kind of nothing really happens, but you know the town people kind of a book series. So this seems like a nice, easy, comforting read, which maybe I should start it now because, oh boy, it's crazy out there. These High Green Hills, another Mitford book. Christietown by Susan Candle, a C.C. Caruso mystery, a novel about vintage clothing, romance, mystery, and Agatha Christie. So, something about, trying to figure out the truth behind Agatha Christie's real-life disappearance, and then an Englishman who claims to be Agatha Christie's descendant is not having this lady trying to figure out what happened to her in the Cotswolds, what happened to Agatha Christie. So this should be a fun little mystery series. Okay, next up, Mrs. Queen Takes the Train by William Kuhn. An impromptu visit to a place that holds happy memories for the former Royal Yacht Britannia, now moored near Edinburgh. Hidden beneath a skull-emblazoned hoodie, the limber Elizabeth, thank goodness for yoga, walks out of Buckingham Palace and heads for King's Cross to catch a train to Scotland. But a colorful cast of royal attendants has discovered her missing. In uneasy alliance, a lady-in-waiting, a butler, an equerry, a girl from the stables, a dresser, and a clerk from the shop that supplies Her Majesty's cheese set out to bring her back before her absence becomes a national scandal. So this sounds like a really fun British little escapade book. It's his first novel. This just sounds really delightful. I am keeping it. Okay. The Great House by Nicole Krauss. I met Nicole Krauss. This has not been opened before. This is, I believe, her third book, her third novel. I met Nicole Krauss when her second book came out, which is it Something of Love? Not Pursuit of Love. That's Nancy Mitford. Something of Love. I could probably look inside here and see what it was. Anyways, she came to one of my local bookstores and I had her History of Love, that's what it is. I had her sign that. She read a little bit from the book and I loved it. She seemed really fascinating and interesting. There were like 10 people, 12 people at this book signing. And afterwards, I just thought she was so kind of neat. And the fact that she was kind of close to my age, I'm always in awe of authors and geek out and say really stupid stuff like they're teen idols or something, but it's just an author, you know? So this was like the worst example of me geeking out in front of an author, I think. So there were so few of us and I just had purchased The History of Love. She signed it for me, was very, very nice about it. And then I went to the front and I was about to leave and I thought, no, I'm going to buy her first book too, which is Man Walks Into a Room. And I went back to have her sign it. And I think I was like, hi, can you, I'm sorry, I just don't, can you, I'm sorry. And then I think I said something weird, like super awkward, like, I swear I'm not a stalker, or something along those lines. And she kind of looked at me like, okay, I didn't think you were. Thanks for coming. Like, please leave, crazy lady. Oh yeah, I am super chill. So anyways, Rambley's side story. Don't know what this is about. Don't really care. I think it's about a desk that gets passed down in a family, or the desk's life throughout history, what it goes through, or the house perhaps, since it's not called the Great Desk. I don't know. Of course I'm keeping it. The Judgment of Paris, the revolutionary decade that gave the world Impressionism by Ross King. This chunkster, which is illustrated, yay, it's about 400 pages. I have really liked before his Ross King's book on Brunelleschi's Dome. I believe that's the one that I read. Or did he write the one about the Arno in Florence? Anyone knows, please correct me if I'm wrong below. But this should be really, really interesting. It's about all these fun things. And I like his writing, so keeping it. I'm gonna put that right back in the bin since I'm running out of space on the table next to me. The Bookman's Tale, a novel of obsession by Charlie Lovett. 9 months after the death of his beloved wife, Amanda, Peter Byerly, a young antiquarian bookseller, relocates from North Carolina to the English countryside, hoping to outrun his grief and rediscover the joy he once took in collecting and restoring rare books. But upon opening an 18th century study of Shakespeare forgeries, he discovers a Victorian watercolor of a woman who bears an uncanny resemblance to Amanda. Obsessed with learning the picture's origins, Peter braves a host of dangers to follow a trail of clues back across the centuries, all the way to Shakespeare's time, and a priceless literary artifact that could prove once and for all the truth about the bard's real identity. For fans of Geraldine Brooks's People of the Book. Nothing bad here, keeping it. The House by Christina Lauren. This is a standalone, one of their first books. Right now they read what seems like much more tame, new adult, current contemporary romances. But they went from this, and they have one YA book, which is next up here, Sublime. Anyways, they went for these two, like, sort of standalone haunting reads, to essentially erotica. Like, it's a whole bunch of series of books that are set around the groups of friends. I think there are 3 or 4 series. I've read almost all of them. And I really enjoyed them. They're like lots of fun and sexy and saucy and dirty and stuff. Really like them a lot. But to start here seems a little funny to me. So Christina Lauren, for those of you who don't know, is 2 best friends, Christina and Lauren, writing together. So I will read both of these for sure. And I highly recommend their books if you don't mind some sauciness. Okay. Starry River of the Sky by Grace Lynn. Oh, middle grade book. Have not read this yet, but this is the second in a series. The first book, where the mountain meets the moon, won the Newbery Medal, and it was just absolutely lovely and gorgeous story. This book is the moon is missing in the remote village of Clear Sky, but only a young boy named Randy seems to have noticed. He ran away from home and is working as a chore boy at the village inn. He can't help but notice the village's peculiar inhabitants and their problems. Where has the innkeeper's son gone? Why are Master Chow and Widow Yan always arguing? What is the crying sound he keeps hearing? And how can crazy old Mr. Shan not know whether his pet is a toad or a rabbit? So, magical realism for middle grade students. I cannot, really, adults too. This is such a great book. And this one isn't. The first one is. But I'm sure this one is too. And there, yep, just like in the first one, there are lovely illustrated color things before each chapter. So fabulous. Makes me really want to read this now. I want to read all this now. Who am I kidding? Oh, here it is. Brunelleschi's Dome by Ross King. So clearly I have not read this one yet by him, but I have read something else. No idea what. Should be good. Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan, which I think I might get rid of. This has one of those covers that's like sort of tacky all the time. It doesn't age well. This should be fun, but I think I might just try and get a different edition of it. So I'm going to put that on the side to do so. And the very last book in here is Henry's Sisters by Kathy Lamb. Kathy Lamb writes women's fiction, or really just fiction, standalone books. This is set in Oregon. I think it's her second or third work, but this should be a good standalone. I think she kind of reminds me a little bit of like an American Maeve Binchy. Not quite up to Maeve Binchy, but close. So keeping it 2. So that is fairly pathetic, but fairly typical for me to do on one of my unboxings. Keeping everything except for maybe one, and I'm going to find a replacement copy for another one. So yeah, that's about right. That's also why I have 2,400 unread books in my house. This explains a lot, doesn't it? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the rambling. I hope you enjoyed the glaring sun. And I hope you are all staying safe and well. And I will try to remember to link everything below. I'm not so great at that, in case you haven't noticed. My brain kind of shuts down after I stop recording. Anyways, I will see you soon for another video. And please stay safe and take care of yourself. Bye.